Or shut down an international waterway. The Straits of Hormuz do not belong to Iran. I hope the Chinese bring, whether it's done privately, but I hope it's done directly, that's the message they deliver to them. Our sanctions, you're going to face secondary sanctions, and I don't have an announcement for you on that today, but we don't do these things, for symbolic purposes.
Later.
美国最近对中国又换了一种施压方式，以前是加关税、卡芯片、搞脱钩，现在则开始把矛头对准中国企业和中国银行。直接拿伊朗问题当抓手，公开警告中方别碰美国的制裁红线。可问题是，美国的制裁凭什么要求全世界都必须照单全收？接下来这段发布会上，美国国务卿卢比奥的表态就很强硬，不仅威胁要对无视制裁的中企实施2级制裁，还试图把中国也拉进美国的中东叙事里。来看他说了什么。
No, the one right next to you in the pink.
I have a question on Iran-China relations.
Okay.
What's your reaction to Iranian foreign minister visit to China? Also, Beijing instructed its firms to ignore U.S. sanctions. Could you also address that?
Well, I'll direct you to Treasury on that front. There are options that we have. If you ignore our sanctions, you're going to face secondary sanctions. And I don't have an announcement for you on that today, but we don't do these things, for symbolic purposes. On the first point about the visit, it's fine. I hope the Chinese tell him what he needs to be told, and that is that what you are doing in the Straits is causing you to be globally isolated. You're the bad guy in this. You guys should not be blowing up ships. You should not be putting mines. You should not be trying to hold hostage the global economy. I hope the Chinese bring, whether it's done privately, but I hope it's done directly, that's the message they deliver to them. As I outlined earlier today, China is an export-driven economy. Okay, I'm not here to speak on behalf of what's in the best interest of China, but it's obvious. China is an export-driven economy. That means they depend on other countries to buy from them. Well, you can't buy from them if you can't ship it there, and you can't buy from them if your economy is being destroyed by what Iran is doing. So it is in China's interest that Iran stop closing the Straits. It's harming China as well. The gentleman in the red tie, right there.
Another question about the China-Iran relationship. You said at the beginning of your comments at the top that every single financial situation will be targeted. Does that include Chinese banks? Would the president sanction
We're going to enforce our sanctions. I don't have an announcement for you. That will have to come from Treasury. But we have sanctions in place. And sanctions don't mean anything unless, you're going to do something about them. So I think that's been clear. I think that the Treasury will follow up with any specific announcements. Suffice it to say, we're serious about our sanctions. Then a cost needs to be imposed on Iran for what they are doing. Otherwise, if they get away with this, guys, if they get away with pulling this thing off without paying a price for it and backing down, you're going to see multiple places around the world where other countries are going to be tempted to do the same. This is unacceptable. Again, I want to reiterate the point. We keep arguing back and forth about the war and the shooting and this and that or the other. These guys have shut down an international waterway. The Straits of Hormuz do not belong to Iran. They don't have a right to shut it down and blow up ships and lay mines. And that's what they've done. That needs to be addressed. Otherwise, and it cannot be normalized. Under no circumstances can we live in a world where we accept, okay, this is normal. You have to coordinate with Iran. You have to pay them a toll in order to go through the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is that unacceptable in the Straits, you're creating a precedent that could be repeated in multiple other places around the world. The whole world should join us in this condemnation. And the whole world should join us in doing something about it, by the way. It shouldn't just be us.
Later.
如果说卢比奥代表的是美国国务院的施压风口，那么接下来彭博社对美国贸易代表格里尔的追问，则让中美关系后续走向变得更加扑朔迷离。既然中国已经明确不打算照着美国的制裁令走，那华盛顿到底准备怎么办？是继续口头警告，还是真的要对中国金融机构和企业下手？更有意思的是，面对这个敏感问题，格里尔一边说得非常严肃，一边又不想让它影响中美整体关系以及后续的元首会晤。这种既要又要的矛盾心态，让他在电视节目中显得过于紧张。来看视频。
I know for you the focus is going to change to what's going on in China because the president will be going there next week. Beijing is basically refusing to comply with U.S. sanctions. I'm sure you've seen the reporting that they're telling some firms, some refiners, that they don't need to comply when it comes to imports of Iranian crude. How big of an agenda item is this going to be when the
Obviously, it's something we're going to have to discuss. Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, and anyone who's buying oil from Iran is contributing to that. And so when the Treasury takes a step similar to steps it's taken many times over decades with respect to oil refiners who are dealing with Iran, and you have a country that refuses to comply or directs non-compliance, that's going to have to be a discussion item. We certainly have had it raised at the staff level between China and the United States. I would say we're looking for stability with China. We don't want this to be something that derails the broader relationship or any agreements that might come out of our meeting in Beijing, but it's certainly something that may come up.
What more could be done besides secondary sanctions imposed potentially on Chinese banks? I mean, yesterday the president also said, even though China is doing this, the president said she's been very respectful of him. This doesn't seem respectful of the United States and our rules.
Remember, China and every country, they're going to undertake domestically the laws and regulations they think they need to do. Sometimes they'll be in conflict with ours, and we're going to expect some kind of resolution. At the same time, we have the European Union for years has had a blocking statute against complying with our sanctions on Cuba. So what China's doing is serious. We take it very seriously. But again, for us, it's not something where we're going to let that become the only thing we talk about in the relationship. We have a lot of things we have to cover. That will be addressed, but then we'll address other issues related to trade and geopolitics and foreign policy and everything that comes with the relationship between two of the most important countries in the world.
Ambassador Greer, there's a real question about alliances here and the way that the United States and Europe have been discussing and the tensions that have been emerging versus the rhetoric that's been surrounding the U.S. and the China meeting that is planned for next week. Do you see the U.S. alliances as shifting as some of these negotiations take place, or are these negotiations independent of any kind of traditional alliances that the United States has had?
So I think that's a good question because it puts into context everything that we're doing. And I think you have to look a little bit at history. People think about our alliance system as something that is set in stone, never had issues, have always been perfect, and never been problems. That's just not true. I'm sitting here in Paris in a place where, decades ago, Charles de Gaulle essentially pulled France out of the military structure of NATO and sought to have its own independent nuclear program, which in retrospect, maybe de Gaulle was right. So, we have a long history of having a back and forth between the U.S. and its closest partners as we try to find the right balance between international cooperation and alliances and what we need for our sovereign right. When it comes to trade, the United States, we have to reindustrialize. We have to reduce our trade deficit. We have to get real wages up. We have to have manufacturing as a bigger portion of our economy. That necessarily means that we need to fix the terms of trade with other trading partners, friend or foe. And that means we have to have hard conversations with the Europeans, who, by the way, have the largest trade surplus in the world with the U.S. right now. It's no longer China as of last year. With the United States, I don't think we're going to let that get in the way of whatever military cooperation we want to have with the Europeans. If other countries want trade to get in the way of that kind of cooperation, that's up to them. But there's a long history of having economic differences and challenges and resolutions and disputes, et cetera, and siloing that off from military and security questions. Sometimes they get mixed, sometimes they stay apart.
Later.
看完卢比奥和格里尔这两段表态，我最大的感受就是，美国到现在还是没变，依然习惯把自己的制裁当成全世界都必须接受的规则。可问题是，美国制裁首先是美国自己的政策工具，不是天然凌驾于各国主权之上的国际法。它没有经过全世界授权，却总想让所有国家照单全收，谁不配合就威胁谁，惩罚谁，甚至搞二级制裁，连第三方国家的企业和银行都不放过。这说白了就是典型的长臂管辖，也是美国霸权最直白的一种表现。所以如果中国真的下令不许企业听从美国的单边制裁并且付之行动，我认为这件事完全站得住，因为一个真正独立的大国不可能在关键经贸问题上让另一个国家来替自己做决定。今天美国能拿伊朗做文章，明天就能拿别的国家、别的行业、别的商品继续施压。 如果中国总是顾虑重重，不敢表态，那最后美国只会越来越得寸进尺。中国这一步如果迈出去，本质上不是在替伊朗站台，而是在维护自己的政策独立和国家主权，告诉外界中国企业到底听谁的，不由华盛顿来定。而美国现在最尴尬的地方也正好在这里，他想继续威胁中国，但又不敢真的把事情推得太极端，因为中美关系的体量摆在那里，不是他想像过去那样随便动动制裁大棒就能让中国立刻低头。所以你会看到格里尔一边说问题很严重，一边又反复强调不想影响整体关系。这种前后别扭，其实恰恰说明美国自己也清楚，他未必真压得住中国。说到底，这件事表面看是制裁问题，实际上却是在比一件更大的事：未来的国际经贸规则到底还要不要继续由美国单方面说了算？如果中国这次能顶住，那意义绝不只是一次表态，而是对美国长臂管辖的一次实质性回击。